Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Moving to India Part 1, Dr. Jaya Prakash Narayan with Sadhguru. I don't think I said it correctly. But moving to India. Is that Sadhguru moving to India? Or the doctor here? And I was just thinking, it's like, what does it mean, moving to India? I thought Sadhguru was born in India. Did he move out? Or did the doctor move out? And then they're moving back? But anyways, I don't know. Let's go ahead and get started.
Maranam karuna milanam madura smaranam karuna kalavashadiha sakalam karunam samayadipate akilam karunam. Good evening, everyone.
Sadhguru, it's a great opportunity and honor for me to interact with you. In many ways, there can't be a greater contrast between two individuals.
At least in appearance, we are.
You from a very urbane and very sophisticated background. I grew up in a village in Telugu medium. And you are in the spiritual realm. And I'm anything but spiritual, I'm in the completely temporal realm. I built all my life around the principles of rationality and logic. In some ways, this is a collision of the two frames of reference. And I greatly look forward to learning a great deal from you and getting a lot of insights as to how to manage this synthesis. In some ways, you are the thesis and the antithesis. So hopefully a synthesis will emerge today, Sadhguru. Sadhguru, with your permission.
Sorry, that's what I'm personally trying to do. Blend it in such in a way for me to better understand it, but also hopefully maybe this blend will provide more information. I don't know, just a blend of it, like a halfway point. But yeah.
So hopefully a synthesis will emerge today, Sadhguru. Sadhguru, with your permission, I would like to broadly explore 3 or 4 themes. The first is about what is right and what is wrong, and what is good and what is bad, and what is morality, what are taboos, and what is the role of values and the role of institutions. That's one broad subset of themes. The second is, as the blurb said, politics and corruption. You cannot escape those two things, unfortunately, in India today. Therefore, politics and corruption, without going into party politics, but the broader issue of politics. The third is our nation and our society. And the fourth is this collision of spiritual and the temporal worlds.
Very good topics he's talking about. I'm curious because, he's talking about India, but it's like, oh, you're talking about America. Let's go, wait. It's like, well, it seems like it's everywhere, man. It is everywhere. And I'm curious to see how much the corruption and everything's alike, or what are the differences, if there are any. It'd be very surprising if it's very similar. And this gets me thinking about my worldview and how I understand people in general, and governments, and how governments work and how people work. Because there is a lot of similarities, even from, say, Western to Eastern people. It's just very interesting. So it just goes to show that if there's a lot of similarities, even in different cultures, that humans are much more similar, whether you're Eastern or Western or Northern or Southern.
Oh, you better be ready for a whole night then.
If I may start off with the first line of inquiry. When you are a person of religion, you were given certain edicts, what is good, what is bad, the 10 commandments, the do's and the don'ts. But in ordinary life, for most people, particularly in the public domain, to distinguish between good and bad, seems to be increasingly difficult. I've always held that there are two realms, the individual gain, and the second is the public good. If one is clashing with the other, if my personal gain is clashing with the public good, then that is something bad. If both are in harmony, then that is something good. That seems to me to be a workable definition of what is good and bad for ordinary interaction between the citizen or individual and the community and the society. What are your thoughts on that?
Give me a second. Give me 1 second. I was just gonna say, whatever makes you happy, so long as it doesn't impose on anyone else. But that's basically what he said. So other than that, I have no idea.
So once you start a debate as to what is good and what is bad, actually in reality, this debate can go on forever without coming to a conclusion. Obviously, you have debated this within yourself and around yourself for many years, and still there's no conclusion. And believe me, people have been debating this for thousands of years, and still there is no conclusion. Why this is so is, generally, this starts from within the family, that is, people who have the authority within the family. If you really carefully look at it, essentially it boils down to this: what I do is good, what you do is bad. That extends to the society, to politics, to various things. Whoever is in a position of power, who is in a position of dominance, they may not spell it out so crudely, but in so many ways they're telling you, what I do is right, what you do is wrong. So ultimately it becomes about whoever is in a state of advantage is right, whoever is in a state of disadvantage is wrong.
It's kind of interesting. That goes along the lines of the victors of the war, who basically whoever wins the wars ends up being the right for the most part, because they get the right history in some sense.
Well, that principle is the basis of all exploitation and all the ugliness that you see on the planet. So instead of starting a debate on what is good and what is bad, I think what we need is what is appropriate and what is inappropriate to our times, to our society, to our existence here, to our level of economics. What is right and what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. Now, if… I'm just saying, for example, we are a rich nation because if you have 29 rupees per day, you are rich in this country. We are one rich nation, another rich nation is United States. So between these two, if you compare, what may be right there is not right here, because the conditions are not same.
I was thinking, is he going to talk about like how a lot of things in our past, which we think is wrong today, is actually right during the times, because everyone was doing it. This is something that I've also kind of had an issue with about, like, you could look at slavery as one example, where it is terrible, obviously, but in the past it was the norm. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it is the norm of the time, and it was accepted at the time. And what we're doing right now, what you're doing right now, it's considered hideous 200 years from now, but you don't know any different. So you can't exactly necessarily blame the people in the past, especially yourself, for what you're doing right now is so heinous. 200 years from now, what you're doing is very heinous, but you can't blame yourself for that, because you don't know it is acceptable today, right now.
People's lives are not same, culture is not same, people's emotions are not same, people's wants, likes and dislikes are not same. So what is right there may be completely wrong here. What is right here may be completely wrong there. So within the nation, when we say a nation, we believe we are all Indians, but here everybody has an opinion of his own. It will be fanciful to think there is one person here who doesn't have an opinion of his own, who goes by Indian constitution. There's not one single person like that here. Everybody has their own opinion, their own twist of what is right and wrong, isn't it? 1.2 billion people, every one of them has their own opinions. Two people cannot agree as to what's right and wrong. So instead of looking at right and wrong, if you start looking at what is appropriate? Okay, these are our conditions, this is our life. What is the most appropriate thing to do right now? Tomorrow if our conditions change, the appropriateness changes. Then there will be no clashes. Constantly the clash between the previous generation and this generation, between one human being and the other human being is, your ideas of right and his ideas of right are so different. Parents and children are fighting, administration and people are fighting, management and union is fighting, simply because your ideas of good and bad are very different, and it's always different. Within the family, between the husband and the wife, basic unit of the family, their ideas of right and wrong are very different. So once you enter that space, you are entering into an endless controversy, no possibility of a solution. But if you look at appropriateness of action, then we can arrive at what is the appropriate thing to do in our society, for our conditions, for our limitations.
I'll say probably, even if you were to bring that to the United States, what is appropriate and what is right, what is appropriate and not appropriate, and what is right and wrong, what is good and bad, are all the same thing. Words won't change what is good and bad, what is appropriate and not appropriate, because with even that, the way people think is just going to be so different. What is appropriate between every person is going to be different. What is inappropriate, there's going to be some commonalities, of course, but that's the same thing with good and bad, and right and wrong, and appropriate and not appropriate. I have a feeling just in the culture in the United States that it's just all three of those words, or I'm sorry, 6 of those words are going to mean the exact same thing.
Now, Sadhguru, I hear you saying that A, the cultural ambience in which you live, that matters about the appropriateness, and B, it changes from time to time, generation to generation. In other words, people sometimes confuse taboos with morals, the changing fashions and attitudes with morals. But unless we have some kind of a yardstick which is measurable and somewhat universal in guiding our behavior and dealing with the society at large, or perhaps even in nature, how are we going to give people a yardstick other than religious edicts? That is a challenge for many agnostics, because we can't go by the 10 Commandments merely because God gave us those. We can't go by the Gita because Lord Vishnu told us so. We need a temporal yardstick. We need an institutional mechanism to be able to measure and say this is right, this is wrong, a talisman.
We need to understand this. Right now, we are trying to fix human life with morality. It's never worked. Even the 10 Commandments that you are referring to repeatedly has never worked. It's only carved in the stone. Nobody has ever really stuck to it, believe me. People who said, "Thou shalt not kill," are the ones who are killing constantly.
Even with the threat of hell and eternal damnation and eternal torture, doesn't even stop people from doing it.
It is just that it will happen in a different garb, in a different way. So trying to fix the human societies with morality will only bring more and more deception. And above all, it kills life in so many different ways. Why are we trying to fix life with morality? Essentially because we have never bothered to stir up humanity. There is something called as humanity within us. If you stir up this dimension which we call as humanity, when somebody is feeling very human, he doesn't need morality. He will be fine the way he is. But instead of being a human being, he becomes a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim or an Indian or a Pakistani or this or that, or so many things, caste, creed and many things. So instead of a human identity, he takes on a different identity. Now you can do most horrible things with great pride. Yes, you can kill thousands, not one. You can kill thousands and feel really good about it.
Sorry, I wanted to pause here just because this is something that in the last debate with the very infamous person, the young student that was very hostile towards Sadhguru here. Sadhguru was talking about how we should unite under one nation, and the students like, no, the nation, we're really talking about India, and say, oh no, the nation is terrible or whatever. And Sadhguru says, well, then it's not about the flag necessarily. Just give us something that all people can unite under, so that we can see ourselves as one uniting force. And the student really couldn't give one. And I think this is what he's going about here, is that we unite under humanity instead of our different identities. Whatever country we were born, whatever religious beliefs we have, whatever sports team we believe in, whatever abilities we have, instead of all identifying as all those different things as a way of separation, we identify with one thing that which we all have in common, that we can all unite under and be good.
Did it because I did it for the nation, I did it for my religion, I did it for my caste, creed, whatever else. So your identity is shifting from your fundamental identity to make-believe identities. It may serve limited purpose. We are a nation because we have to politically manage ourselves. It is not some divine dictum that this is a nation like this. We are the people who drew the lines, isn't it? Now we believe that's how it is. For certain functional realities we draw lines, but that is not the reality. So a human being should essentially be identified as a human being, not by his religion, not by his race, not by his caste, creed, nationality, no. If he sits here as a human being, you will see he does not need morality.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but again, this is something that I think about when I talk to my friend about how we look, explain about America, how it's very troubled, there's a lot of violence in it. And then we look at countries that are very humongous, very homogenous, and it tends to be countries that are homogenous. There are other factors too, but I do believe homogenous countries tend to be a bit more peaceful, just because homogenous countries tend to have people that look all alike, that have the same religion, that have the same ideas, that have the same skin color, the same hair color, the same eye color, the same color of their pants, same color of the underwear, same color of their shirts. The more things that are different, the more things you can kind of separate yourself. So if you have diversity, it's sad. I hate that fact that diversity can be seen as a negative, even though it should be looked as a positive, but we use it as a way of weaponizing amongst each other instead of using it as a way to benefit each other.
He will be fine. And that's what is needed in the society, to stir up humanity, not morality.
I think that's a terrific message, Sadhguru. Essentially what you're advocating is that go beyond the individual, go beyond the sect and the creed, and embrace humanity itself, and you will not go wrong in your actions.
I'm not saying embrace humanity, I'm saying you are human, isn't it? I don't have to teach you to be human, you are human.
Some people you
do.
The
problem is, somebody else has taught you that you are something else. Somebody else has told you you're Indian, somebody else has told you you're Hindu, somebody else has told you you're Muslim. But the reality is you're human. If you go little further, you're just a piece of life, isn't it? If you sit here as a piece of life, do you have any problem with any piece of life in the existence? If you sit here and throb as a piece of life, which is what's happening, it doesn't matter, we are talking something, whatever we may be talking, essentially, we are sitting here as throbbing as a piece of life. Rest is all made up by us, isn't it? This is the reality of existence. If you sit here as a piece of life, you instantly know that there is nothing in the existence with which you are not connected. But if you sit here as an Indian, if the person sitting next to you is P, there's problem. If you sit here as a Hindu, if the next person is M, problem. Like this it goes on, it doesn't stop there. It goes into further and further divisions and divisions and divisions. So, essential dimension of spiritual process is that you disidentify yourself with all the false identities you have taken on, and to learn to sit here just as a piece of life. If you sit here as a piece of life and throb as a piece of life, breathe as a piece of life, you know, this happened a few years ago because you mentioned this project Green, hence I'm bringing this on. When I said that we need to plant 114 million trees to get Tamil Nadu to 33% green cover, people said, Sadhguru, do you know what is 114 million? Is it possible for any human being to plant this many? See, I told them, the population of Tamil Nadu is 62 million people. If all of us plant one tree, take care of it for 2 years and plant for one more tree, what is the number? You got it. So it's not difficult, even a beggar is capable of planting one tree, isn't it? Now the problem is that they must feel for it. How do you do it? I told them, you don't worry. I went out village to village, called farmers' associations together. I told them one simple thing, just sit here. Where do you want to sit? In the sun or under the tree? Choose. You know what's the choice. Everybody sits under the tree. Now I said, see, are you breathing? Yes. I want you to understand what you exhale, the tree is inhaling. What the tree is exhaling, you are inhaling. Just sit here and feel it, it's happening. One half of your lungs is hanging out there. Your breathing equipment is not completely here. Only one half is here, one half is hanging out there. Just see the tree and breathe. It just caught like a fire. We have not planted 114 million trees, but 17 million trees. And Tamil Nadu's green cover has officially gone up by 7.2%. And we didn't give up our lives to do this. This is just one of the small things we do. This is just one aspect of our activity.
And I don't know how specific the trees have to be planted over there, but that's something, again, I'd like to do some days. I'd like to plant not just necessarily a basic tree, but like a fruit tree, so that also benefits you. You know, you don't have to necessarily just plant a basic tree, but you can plant like an orange tree, an apple tree, a pear tree, or whatever kind of tree, and then you get free fruit, you know, so long as you take care of that tree. That's like, again, a double benefit right there. Not only do you have a tree that you plant to help the greenhouse effects and to provide the tree coverage, but you also get free fruit. It's a great exchange in a sense. You take care of the tree will take care of you.
We didn't give up our life to do this. Just that if everybody gets involved, it's such a small job, isn't it? Why are they not getting involved? Because they're identified with something. If they sat here as a piece of life, nobody had to tell them. They would have anyway done it by themselves. So, it is because of these wrong identifications that we are doing all these crazy things, and you're trying to fix it with morality. It's not going to work. It's not worked for these thousands of years, isn't it? So the best thing is, first step is to stir up your humanity. If that is done, the next thing is to see that you're just a piece of life. Even being human is your idea. Well, the theory of evolution is telling you, just some time ago you were a monkey. I'm sorry, not me, Charles Darwin. Just some time ago you were a monkey, and the difference between you and a chimpanzee, your DNA is only 1.23% different from that of a chimpanzee. Not a big difference, isn't it? After all, they're your relatives still. Many of your relatives look like that, isn't it? When you don't like them. So, experiencing life as life is more important than we making up something which is not true. This is what has happened to human society.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but oh my God, that is something that I feel like is getting a bit worse in America. They're creating more and more divisive things. And it's a bit hard to understand a little bit. I'm sorry, I can't really say it, but if you're keeping up a little bit, you might know, I don't know. But it's really, I don't get it. But I'm wondering if it's happening in India right now too. I don't know.
This is what has happened to human psyche, that they are not sitting here as life. They're sitting here as so many things which they are not. They realize this only when they die.
Sadhguru, as a parochial aside, I wish Isha Foundation is in Andhra Pradesh so that we would have got the benefit of the tree plantation.
I'm in
and
Andhra
many other
Pradesh
things.
right now.
I hope these seeds will truly spread. Sadhguru, that brings me to the question of ensuring that the moral conduct is actually upheld. While spiritual gurus, religion itself, and societal norms have a value, they don't seem to be sufficient. Only in India, whenever you talk about corruption or some other misconduct in public life or in private life, we talk of morality and values instead of talking about institutions.
As far as I'm concerned, there's no corruption in India. Where is corruption in India? There is only banditry. I don't see any corruption. Because corruption means you come to me and you want a favor to be done, I'm willing to do it, but you know, under the table I want 2 rupees from you. This is corruption.
Because what's happening
I
is
break
plunder.
your head and I take everything that you have, this is not corruption.
It's just plunder. So when we talk of all these evils in the public domain, oftentimes we talk of values in this country rather than enforcing a certain code of conduct. There's something that troubles people like me, because if indeed values without any external compulsion can be internalized and they can guide the behavior of every single human being, they probably guide the behavior of a large majority of people. Because if there is peace in this country, if all of us are going to go back homes after this session with a reasonable degree of certainty that there will not be any victims of violence, it's because the society has these norms and values. But there's always deviant behavior in society. Unless the laws of the land, unless the enforcement mechanism are strong enough to enforce a certain code of conduct and prove that there is punishment for bad behavior and reward for good behavior, I'm afraid values in themselves will not for long sustain us.
Not at all.
Now, this is something that we need to get from you, because overemphasis on values at the cost of institutions sometimes may actually become an excuse for doing nothing to build institutions. It's a bit like this water in the glass. The water is obviously the one that is giving life. Without that, we can't quench the thirst. But without the glass, without the container, the water is not usable. While water is what gives life, the container, the institutions are what make the life, the value usable. So my appeal to you is, A, give us your views, and if you broadly think that this is the right approach, what institutional mechanisms we need to build, in your estimate, to build higher levels of public integrity, higher levels of civic conduct?
What I was doing there was, I thought maybe you were saying that if you build up too much institution that you basically end up covering the water and it no longer becomes sustainable. Even though you're containing the water, you can't drink from it. I probably got that wrong.
See, one important thing that India needs to do is to simplify the laws in a way that everybody understands it. Right now, it's so complex and so ambiguous, nobody really knows what it is. And because there is so much ambiguity, it creates so much gray areas, which breeds corruption endlessly. If there is no ambiguity, somebody just couldn't come and ask money out of me to do some work, isn't it? There is so much ambiguity. These laws were largely created by the English because they wanted ambiguity so that they could interpret it whichever way they want. If they want to pick you up tomorrow morning, they want to pick you up and there's a good enough reason. We have still kept the same laws, and even today it is true, the law can just come and pick you or me up now, and I don't know what I have done, but he can pick you up and they can produce something number whatever, criminal procedure code, some damn number that I'm not aware of, and they can say you did this. Because it's such an ambiguous law, this is good to control foreign nations if you occupy them, not for our nation to move ahead. Too much ambiguity.
I don't disagree with Sadhguru there. I do understand the reasoning for ambiguity, because sometimes when they write a law, it can't cover every single little thing about what that law is supposed to provide. So they kind of leave it up to the judge to interpret the law based on the scenario that it's in. But at the same time, Sadhguru's right. Whenever you have corruption in, well, he doesn't say corruption, but when you have corruption in law, then they can just, the ambiguity of it, they can just come and grab you and say, oh, no, that law was interpreted differently. This is how I'm interpreting it, and you broke it. I understand the need for it, but at the same time, like Sadhguru is saying, too much is too bad. It's too bad. It's not good.
To give you an example, I'm sure there are people involved in various kinds of real estate. Is one of the big activities happening. If you want to… I don't know how long it takes in Andhra Pradesh. Normally in Tamil Nadu it takes 12 to 14 months to get an approval for a building. Many things would have changed in 14 months' time. You may be no more interested to build in 14 months' time. You go through some 16 departments.
Wow.
And you have to put people to follow this file every day, where it is going. And of course, there is a fixed fee, beyond the fee. All that you do, still 14 months. In the end, you have spent so much, you spend so much time, with vengeance you break the law. Understand? Just with vengeance, because you spent so much money. If you said 10,000 square feet, I want to build 15,000 square feet because anyway I paid you, what is the big deal? It comes to that. So all laws are flouted without any problem. In United States, we are building, we are building a big center. Here if you go, they have a code book, building code. Your architect anyway has to be certified. He must know the codes. Apart from that, a code book is given to you about 250 pages. You better read it. You build whatever you want. No department, no sanction. You build whatever you want. But before occupation, he will come for an inspection. If it's by the code, it's fine. If it's not by the code, your building goes down and you go in.
Well, I don't think it goes down. I think you're given a chance to correct the errors. I don't think it goes down right away. But then again, I don't know. It would be really harsh for them to take down the building because one thing is wrong. They'll say, no, this is not up to code. You'll probably get fined maybe, or more than likely, if it's never been used, you'll have to be corrected before it can be used.
Simple. So
I will say, if Sadhguru is saying American building code is simple, that's saying a lot. Because laws around here is freaking complicated and diluted. And if you're saying that's simple, that is saying something.
You go in. Simple. So now the amount of government machinery that is needed just to sanction a building is cut down to just a few people rather than these various departments. If I'm a citizen of this country, why do you think I'm naturally a criminal? Why are you sanctioning what I should do, what I should not do? Just tell me this is the way to build in this country, I will build that way. If I don't, bring it down. I'm just saying as one example. You can see million examples like this in the country where laws are unnecessarily complicated and ambiguous, which is essentially breeding ground for corruption.
Sadhguru, the saying in Andhra Pradesh is, in Tamil Nadu, you give you a bribe and your work gets done.
Don't tell me.
In Andhra Pradesh, you give you a bribe and still you're harassed. So there are still grades and grades in this corruption phenomena in this country. Sadhguru, before we go into the issue of politics and corruption, because all of us love to hate politicians.
I wouldn't allow that because it's become a fashion and a fad and almost a compulsion that wherever you go, people are talking politics. How horrible the politicians are, whether they know about it or they don't know about it. From a tea shop to an office and wherever else, it's happening. If you are a responsible citizen, what democracy means is, it is the people's government. These politicians did not land from the sky. They're one among you who stood up to do something. Now, for whatever reasons they've become the way they've become, You do not know how many have become like that, how many not. We are generalizing because we have a certain pleasure in painting everything very bleak and black. If your nation is important for you…
I'm sorry, I want to say, also, I think, in my opinion, it's the fact that we'd like to blame issues on other people, and politicians are very easy targets to blame issues on. Oh, it's not my fault that things are going wrong, it's the politician's fault.
Very bleak and black. If your nation is important for you, and if you believe that you have handed over your nation to a bunch of crooks, and you are sitting here and it's entertainment for you, I think it is you who needs to be punished, not the corrupt. Because democracy cannot be a spectator sport, it is a participatory process. If I say participatory, most people's understanding of this is if I come out once in 5 years and vote, my responsibility is over. No, democracy has various instruments through which you can participate on a daily basis in the governance of your country, your state, your city and your street. There are various mechanisms. Oh, I don't know. Why you don't know? Because you've not cared, isn't it? Why you have not educated yourself to know is you have not cared, because the idea of the nation has not gone deep enough in this country. Still, our identifications with our religions, our caste, our creed, our family is more predominant than the identity of the nation. This is the reason why these things are happening. I don't know if I can share this, but let me try it out because this happened in Andhra Pradesh. I was traveling with a lady who comes from a political family in Andhra Pradesh. I saw the way things were going on in the family and stuff, and I just joked, if you are given a choice, probably your father will break the country into 4 pieces and give it to the 4 children that he has. I was amazed and shocked, I didn't know I don't know how to articulate this expression. The person was actually genuinely said, what is wrong with that? Our father loves us.
It's my birthright.
Yes. Now, what we need to understand is, we as a nation are moving from a feudalistic existence to a democratic existence. The system has changed, but our mind has not changed. We are still feudalistic. People are complaining, not everybody. A lot of people are complaining. Their complaint is only that we didn't get the chance to be corrupt. We are at the receiving end or the giving end. They're not complaining that there is corruption. Really, I'm telling you. I have been interacting with people on all levels and I know they're not really complaining about corruption. It is just that we have to pay and they are taking. I would like to be on the other side. If you want to test it out, tomorrow morning remove all the police from Hyderabad city, just see how many people actually stop at the red light if there's no policeman. My average is 90% won't stop. Some fools like me will stop. I'm driving in Coimbatore or wherever, red light, I stop. Everybody is going zook zook next to me and they're looking at me, who's this fool? Who's blocking the traffic? You know, they're looking at me, what's wrong with you? No police.
Jeez.
So, essentially our integrity has gone down. It is not even a question of integrity, it is just that within ourselves we are still very feudalistic, but we are trying to be democratic. So democracy in India is still in an evolutionary state, needs lot more evolution. And nobody has done to educate people as to what is democracy. Not enough work has been done. It has not been brought into our education systems. Social organizations, the government itself should have taken it up in a big way to educate people why democracy. See, the moment we vote for our religion or caste or creed or even family, if you vote, there is no democracy anymore. There is only feudalism, isn't it? Democracy will be a functional democracy only when You go and vote and you don't know who your wife voted for, who your husband voted for, and you don't want to know. Only if you have this kind of integrity, democracy will work. You tell your whole family, all of you vote for this person, this is not democracy, it's finished.
I mean, in the United States, politics is becoming extremely divisive. It's become so divisive in the past 8 years or so. It's really crazy. It's even ruining relationships. It's so weird to see how two people could be perfectly matched together, but yet if their political point of view is just different, it ruins the whole thing. They won't even work with each other. That's I don't know why I keep going to relationships with that, but it's the truth. It's so weird. Yeah.
I'm saying that has not been understood at all.
I will say this, I agree with Sadhguru. That's another thing in the United States, is the fact that even in the United States, they don't explain democracy in schools. I mean, we have freaking cell phones here that we can Google a lot of information, but you know what? In the United States, more people vote in the what's the popular singing things on TV? More people turn out voting for that thing than the actual elections, and they participate in that thing more than the elections. It's kind of crazy.
We had a set of by-elections in Andhra Pradesh recently, in 18 assembly constituencies and 1 Lok Sabha constituency. It is widely believed that something like 400 to 500 crore rupees were spent at the very least.
It's not spent, it's invested.
Sadhguru, you made some extremely important comments about democratic evolution. While we all have aspirations to expect that we'll suddenly become a great liberal democracy overnight without working hard at it, is somewhat unrealistic, is the gist of what you're saying. And I'm grateful for those comments, because that appreciation is very critical, particularly for those of us sitting here, the middle classes, who are so impatient about what's happening in the country. In that context, Sadhguru, somebody said, the best way of getting justice is rendering justice to your adversary, to your opponent. The quickest way of getting justice, because he will then understand your point of view, and you will then come to an agreement which is just to both of you. Oftentimes, I think, in dealing with public affairs in this country, we have forgotten that there is this acrimony, this bitterness, not only among political parties, but also between the media and the political parties, between the public and the political parties and the governments. A lot of anger and a lot of polarization. One thing I would like you to advise us, Sadhguru. If you ask a politician, look, why are you doing what you're doing? You're a good man, you're an ethical man. He has many alibis. He'll tell you 100 reasons why he genuinely had to do what he did in order to survive in office. In other words, honest and good conduct is not conducive to survival in political office increasingly in the country. And B, in any country, even in the United States or Britain or Germany or Japan, there's always a clash between what the voters want in the short term and what the nation needs in the long term. And the politician has the difficult task of bridging these two. And he cannot survive without the voters' goodwill, and the nation cannot survive without the politician's wisdom. How do you bridge this gap?
My feeling in the United States at the moment, at least, is the fact that a lot of politicians makes a lot of promises, and then they don't live up to those promises. And what they end up doing is they end up blaming the other party for saying, "Oh, we didn't get this because or the opposition, the Republicans or the Democrats held us up," even though at one point in their presidency they had all three of the governmental powers under their control, all Republican or all Democrats. And then sometimes they use it as a tactic too. I don't know if it's happening in India, but let me know if you want. Is that what they'll do is they'll wait till coming up elections like midterms and stuff to push, like, here's what I promise, see how good the Democrats or Republicans are doing, and here's the promise that I made, vote for our party kind of deal. It's like they don't do it until they need to do it to get the votes in. It's really, it's kind of bad. For the most part, it's been always a lot of false promises, and now what they're doing, at least from my from what I'm seeing, is that they're actually kind of giving some of the promises to get votes.
Sadhguru.
They like the question. They like the question, they may not like the answer. First thing is, I would like you and everybody else to drop the word justice from their language. Because there's no such thing as justice on the planet.
Whoa.
What is justice for you will be injustice for somebody. Usually the word justice is used to enforce revenge on someone, whether it's legal revenge or illegal revenge. But whatever, if somebody does a killing, he thinks he's got what he deserved. Somebody thinks so, isn't it? That's why they do it. So let's not go by justice. Let us simplify the laws and enforce the law. Right now, nobody has any right to think about justice. We must become a law-abiding society first. After that, the luxury of justice will come. Sometimes when the law itself is cruel, we can break the law and deliver justice. Right now, the way we are in this country, there is no luxury like that. Here, law must be enforced first. Simply enforce the law. It may be unjust, but enforce it. Because without a semblance of order, there will be no luxury of justice in any society. Right now, we have no order. Where is the question of justice? Revenge will be labeled as justice. Now, how to bring this about in a society? As I said, one most important thing is to simplify the laws. And if you want to live in this country, everybody must understand the basic laws, what the laws are. Most of the people existing in this country do not know what the basic laws are.
Here's a quick question, because in the United States, I'm in agreement with the Sadhguru here. We have the federal government, and then we have our local governments, and then the local governments being state government, and even probably lower governments for city or whatever. The thing is the fact that each state has their own law. So, and there's the federal law, which is there's not a lot of, I don't think. But then there's the state laws, which each state is a little bit different. So when you move from one state to another, the laws change. It's not state laws, I think, overcome federal law unless it's passed by, I think, the Supreme Court. I'm not too familiar with laws, but it's a sure fact that this is something I've kind of thought about. It's like, when I move to a different state, or when you go across a state and you get pulled over and you have something, it's like, well, it's legal where I'm from, but I'm just passing by the state and I got pulled over. It's illegal in this state, but I'm not staying in this state. It's a bit of a complication there, and I'm wondering if that's the same in India, where you have different province or different states or whatever, where laws are kind of different between the states versus the national laws. I'm wondering if that's like that there too.
Every time you ask, they will throw their hands up.
Or in any country that you're from, I'm wondering that too, whatever, if you want to answer.
They think somebody should tell them. No, we must make it a law that if you want to live in this country, at least this many basic laws you must know. If you want to drive on the street, you must know what are the laws of the street, isn't it? Similarly, if you want to live in this country, you must know this, this and this. Not that you heard from your neighbor, not like that. Proper education, everybody knows that these are the laws. If you break it, this is the punishment. Everybody should know, isn't it? And then enforce it. It's not as simple, enforcing. Making the law itself is complex, enforcement is a super complex thing, because here comes justice in justice. So for a certain period of time, we must be willing to surrender justice and just stick to law. People who are enforcing law sometimes will enforce it in unjust ways. You must endure that. If you don't endure that, you will have a disorderly society, a lawless society. Then revenge will be the way, but we will call it justice. We will go about labeling it as justice, taking revenge on each other. Many things are happening. People are shooting each other and they think they're rendering justice because the law is not sensible. So, in making this happen, in creating an orderly society, not a just society, I want you to understand this because this is a serious sacrifice that we must be willing to make if we want to move ahead. This is a very serious sacrifice that I don't ask for justice, enforce the law on me. Whatever the law, I'll go by it. It may not be just, but I'll go by the law right now. If the law is very unjust, we can look at restructuring the law, but beyond the law, no justice. Nobody has the discretion to deliver justice. This has to be established. This one thing we have not done yet. See, the problem with us is, if you travel 100 kilometers in India, people look different, they dress differently, they speak differently, different languages, our food is different, everything is different. But still, for over 10,000 years, the whole world has referred to us as one nation. Though we were over 200 political entities at some time, still, we've been doing trade with Syria, Jerusalem, Damascus, Jerusalem, Greece, all these places for over 8,000, 10,000 years. Even at those times, they referred to this country as Hindustan, though there were 200 entities. It was referred to as one nation, as Bharatvarsh or Hindustan or whatever the name. Because somewhere people saw this as one nation, though it was ruled by many kings. Because there was one ethos, which is something that the politicians and administrators and the people have never paid attention to. The only thing which keeps us as one nation is a certain fundamental spiritual ethos, which is not on the surface, but which is always there. In the sense, people recognize this as one nation from outside because they all believed in something. This nation has never been a nation of believers. We have been a nation of seekers because spiritual process has been the main thing. Here people are not believing in God, they're seeking mukti or liberation or freedom. There is a difference between a seeker and a believer. A believer means he's made a conclusion. A seeker means he's wide open. He's realized that he does not know, that's why he's seeking. This one quality set us apart from the rest of the world, so outside world recognized as one nation, though there were so many political entities. We need to understand even today, it is only this spiritual thread which is keeping this as one nation. Right now it's being systematically hacked at. If you break this one thing, after 25, 30 years, you will wonder, why are we one nation? And we will break. If you do not strengthen the fundamental spiritual ethos of this nation, if you hack it down with beliefs and other kinds of identities, you will see, you will break up into various nations, you will not be one nation.
Sadhguru, I hear you clearly and I entirely agree with you that unless unity and order are kept even above liberty if necessary, if there is a clash, we are in danger. I totally concur with you as a true democrat and libertarian. But whether spiritualism could be the glue to keep the country united when there are so many meanings of spiritualism. In the name of spiritualism, if a certain religious persuasion or a certain philosophical tradition is propagated, in a very pluralist country like India, the dangers to disunity are even greater. I'm not even talking of morality issue. I'm not even talking of rights issue. The dangers to disunity are far greater, some people could argue, if you overemphasize a certain spiritual tradition, if the emphasis is on the humanist tradition that you have always been advocating, beyond a certain religion or beyond a certain philosophical tradition, then that will be perfectly all right. But unfortunately in this country, this mix of religion and politics has done us a great disservice. So how do you distinguish between religiosity in politics and spiritualism, which is true and all-encompassing?
Well, I'm going to have to pause you right there for sure. So we know we're going to leave off at, because it's already getting into an hour-long one, and that's kind of the sad thing too. It's something that's happening here too. And now, and I'm not saying everything they've discussed so far is very similar to the United States, but a lot of it is, and I'm wondering if this is something that's an issue in other countries as well. And I think it is, and this is something obviously Sadhguru has thought about, which is the identities, which is diversity. I mean, me personally, I don't necessarily believe that identities are necessarily a problem if it's used as a way to make ourselves better, better human beings, or to make our lives better. But the problem is we're using these identities, like the way Sadhguru is saying, as a way of separating ourselves, a way as weaponizing one identity over another identity. And this is the identity politics that's happening in the United States, where you're having group identities versus another group identity, and we're just creating so many group identities that we're all fighting amongst each other instead of trying to unite. But yes, I would love to see identities as ways of, like, I guess an example would be like people who play soccer or football or cricket or baseball or volleyball or tennis. These are different group identities, and instead of using these group identities, say, oh, volleyball's better, or cricket's better, or baseball's better, or soccer or football or whatever is better, instead we're just saying, oh, look at all these wonderful things that we can watch and enjoy. Instead of seeing it that way, we're sitting there saying one is better over another, which is a conflict, as opposed to saying, hey, I like this one, let me watch this. And it's like, okay, that's cool, I'll watch this one because I like this one. Nope, we say this is better, or that's better, or these two are better, or these three, or these four, or whatever. Anyways, that's the first part of first part for my part. Moving to Idiot Part 1. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.